Very. Uh,
You know what? I realize I have already failed at this stream.
why is that?
Because it says drink and think, and the only drink I have with me right now is water.
Well, you are technically drinking. You are
Yeah,
technically drinking.
technically, but
Yes, Talp the Scott, that was tech support.
Tech support's always here.
Tech support is always here. That's true.
Try to introduce her. Have your head on mine.
Yes, that is my wonderful spouse who is my tech support.
making me sad. I can't go diving.
I, yeah, we have to vicariously live through the dive. Let's go scan some stuff. I heck not.
That's cool.
Yeah, I like it. Well, let me scan. Let me scan you. How do I scan? I forget how to do this. Shoot. Oh, I can scan this. Okay. Anyway.
Acid mushroom.
Yeah,
I think I remember hearing about this in college.
I know it's a little on the nose sometimes. I think. Uh, Ethan, isn't diving the original social distancing? He does have a point.
True, underwater doesn't work so well out of the water.
No, come back.
You all end up on like a boat.
Let me scan
together.
There we go.
Rabbit ray.
Well, and one of the reasons, as I said, this sort of goes with astrobiology and on this is another planet, and what kind of life could we get here and find here? Especially because there's a general assumption that water is required.
For life?
Yes. Just in general, I found.
It is an assumption.
That's the thing, because most of the time when I found one, it's like, oh, this planet could be habitable or something like that, and it's like, okay, well, there can't be anything on this planet because there's no water, and I'm like, well, aren't we making an assumption that there has to be water, though? You know, or carbon-based.
It is the universal solvent, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the only solvent.
Also true.
It does have handy hydrogens and oxygens to use in other things.
This is true. Well, and also kind of like, so I think I'd read some stuff and sort of discussions on, actually I need to go look at my recipes instead of just goofing around over here. There were some discussions a little bit on, carbon-based life versus non-carbon-based life. Just because since carbon is just so good at making bonds with things.
I mean, it is very good at that. Has a low threshold to try to make that bond, but it just has to do with where it is. In the periodic table, you do the same thing with silicon.
Yeah. Which I can't remember. Did something come out where we have, like, on Earth itself, if there were some?
Like, no, there's all the life forms on Earth are carbon-based.
Right.
It's just a question of whether they, what they have found on Earth that's kind of weird are creatures that get their sustenance through chemical reactions only. No photosynthesis, not by eating other creatures, but by just interacting with the vents in the ocean.
Well, I think because there's also like methanogens and other like haliophiles. Like, that was the case.
Yeah, extremophiles, right? Exactly.
Yeah. I remember now it's coming back to me because I think I played this game a couple months ago and my whoops, yes, okay, sorry, that's like okay, guys, just lurking for a bit. Gonna need a bigger boat. Have fun with the stream. Okay, thank you. Talk about whether or not we need water stuff to live. Yep. I believe there are some archaea that use arsenic as a base building block. I think I read some stuff like that, and then also there was some actually I went and I looked up that paper because I'm a nerd, and there was actually they don't think anymore that it is a base building block, but it is used as a shoot, in place of like oxygen for like an electron donator, acceptor.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah, something like that. And so that was kind of cool. Whoop, back to you.
Oxygen's going to be a receptor, right? Because it has most of it and it needs one more.
Right. Yeah. No, like in my head, I'm like, wait, chemistry. How do I do this again? Life pod.
I guess I should go ahead and introduce myself while
Yes.
you're figuring this out.
I'm so smart. It's fine. Professional.
So I'm Elizabeth Ferrara. I'm a scientist, PhD scientist at the University of Maryland. I am an astrophysicist, and I study the most extreme objects in the universe, things like black holes and neutron stars. If it's got strong gravity or strong magnetism, I'm probably doing something with it. I also work with a group called Nanograv. It's the Nanohertz Observatory, North American Nanohertz Observatory for Gravitational Waves. There we go. And I haven't had a drink yet. I need one. But they basically are using observations of pulsars to search for gravitational waves from binary supermassive black holes in the centers of other galaxies. That's a lot of words.
It's fine. We're supposed to talk. That's the whole point.
I guess what I mean, it's a lot of words to describe one kind of science.
Oh, but yes, Gamma decided, even though she's been doing a con, you want to tell people about your con?
Yeah, so this weekend, CosmoQuest, which is a really cool group that does a lot of citizen science, decided to have a virtual convention held on Twitch and on Discord that was specifically for the purpose of raising enough money. I love this. Raising enough money for their staff to have full health benefits.
Whoa, that's
amazing. Their part-time staff to have full health benefits, because it's, part-time doesn't necessarily get you benefits. But we've got COVID. People need benefits. So they did that, and it's been great. I've been doing panels there. I just gave an hour-long lecture on, in fact, gravitational waves and searching for them with pulsars. And but it's been a whole bunch of fun. I did one last night about gaming, using space as a theme in games. I went into it as a board gamer, not as a video gamer. I don't video game, and everybody else on the panel was a video gamer, and it's like, oh no, I'm way out of my depth here.
No, it's fine. I am usually a tabletop board gamer, so.
Yeah, mostly I do RPGs. I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, but my husband is an avid board gamer, and when he can convince me to tear myself away from what I'm doing, we'll play board games.
This sounds very familiar.
Usually what I'm doing is playing with a 3D printer.
Oh, are you? What have you been making lately?
Most of what I make, well, lately I've been doing face shields because I can do that.
Yes.
But usually what I'm making is rain or minis for my D&D games, because I'm a huge nerd.
See, this is why I like you. This is why we're friends. I am a very much a theater of the mind type of DM. One, because I'm not artistic in that way, and two, because I'm lazy. But I
mean, from an artistic point of view, I do what other people make. So I buy their designs and I print that out, and then I just paint it. So I guess I'm sort of artistic.
That's it. More so than me. Any of my abilities are any if we could consider them artistic abilities, are only musical in nature.
30 seconds.
So,
That is a significant artistic ability. Music is hard.
Mostly a singer. I do write a lot of very silly cover songs um, and parodies, which Liz knows about because we're she's helping me along with a bunch of other lovely people to make a parody album, which is basically a love letter to Acquisitions Incorporated, Penny
We're kind
Arcade
of
cast and
fans.
people. Hmm?
We're kind of fans.
Seek fluid intake. Oh no.
Like I said, big nerds.
Yes, big nerds. This is true. And I play a lot of D&D. Yes, it is sort of relaxing. Oh, we do have a question. Space games. Have you ever talked with Dr. K. Ross? She works on Elite Dangerous and the Stellar Forge engine.
I have not. I am. How do I put this? I like to play games for the purpose when I'm looking at board games, space games in particular. I'm looking at games to see how they can communicate space themes, especially educationally.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean I have a lot of time, especially since I'm doing D&D a lot. So I have not talked to K. Ross, and I haven't actually really interacted with the Elite Dangerous or Stellar Forge.
Well, I was thinking, I think one of the reasons Ethan is asking is just because he is a huge space game nerd. Space is kind of one of his favoriteest things.
Vital signs.
Uh-huh.
I need to get more bladderfishes, people. Because it's so funny because you'll start to do a little bit of something and then you're just like, I need sustenance. How do I do? How do I do this?
Yeah, actually, Elite Dangerous is one of the ones that was called out on the panel that I was on
Oh, okay.
Saturday night. So that was cool.
Yeah, excellent.
I wrote it down as a thing I need to check out.
I've written it down. It's kind of like my notebooks. Like, oh no, this is a this is a thing I should know. Oh,
Well, this is what us scientists do, right?
Right.
We hear something, we're like, oh, I need to look into that, and we write it down, and then later on, we're like, I wrote that down somewhere. I don't know where I wrote it.
right. And then you go back through your notebook, and then you're like, oh yeah, there was that thing that I wrote down that was like, oh
Yeah, what was that about?
Or I write down an idea, and then it was like, wait, how did I do it? How did I get here? Why?
Mm-hmm.
I made ourselves a little floaty storage container, so this could be cool.
Yeah, I've been wondering what you're doing.
Trying to survive. So, the basis of Subnautica horror. Someone is pinging me on the Discords, but I cannot read it right now, so I don't know. I'm letting those people know. Actually, I need to. What I'm gonna go do? I'm gonna get in the pod. We're gonna get in the pod. Okay, so the basis of Subnautica is you were on a colony. So we're going to do a alt tab. Oop. Discord. Oh, Ethan. Pull me into the call. Okay. Let's see if we can. To see if we can do this.
So Joe asked me a question.
Yes.
I think I assume it's for me. Do 3D printers need climate-controlled spaces? Thinking of renting a garage for a workshop, but it wouldn't have air conditioning or heat. The answer is, it depends on the kind of extremes you're going to end up with, and depends on where you live, right? So, I have found that 3D printers that use filament are pretty stable as long as the temperatures stay stable during the print. If it fluctuates significantly during the print, you can end up with some differences in your print that cause problems. Resin printers have a very specific operating temperature. So if you're going to go too high or too low, generally you're not supposed to use a resin printer there, because either the resin will be the wrong consistency and have problems, or it will actually cause the machine to have problems itself. Although, to be fair, it's incredibly hot right now and I'm still running my resin printer, so I guess I'm taking risks. I run it overnight, though.
I could help. I see that. Okay, Ethan may just join me down here. We're trying to figure this out. Tech support is trying to help me. Thank you, tech support. We appreciate you.
Welcome, Jeff.
Mostly so that he can help read chat. I don't know if everyone here knows who I am. I am a plant biologist. I don't know things about space.
But you know things about these things that you're scanning on this world, right? Because it's
do.
telling you all about them.
It's telling me all about them. I have that deep lore. But I am. Well, I'm weird. I guess I'm a plant microbiologist. That's the closest I could say. But I've been trained as a microbiologist, a geneticist, a biochemist, and a molecular biologist. So that's why I usually just go by phytologist, like in general. I understand that. Jill of all trades, master of none types. But I like doing science communication, and this year I was. I applied and was named a fellow, a Plante fellow for the American Society of Plant Biologists.
Cool.
And so, yep. And so we make stuff for the online sort of community and education. And a lot of people do streams. A lot of people do. Well, actually, they don't do streams. A lot of people will make. There's some people who make YouTube videos, educational YouTube videos. There were some who make. Gotta remember how to get into my.
Vital signs stabilizing.
Yes, I'm dehydrated. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're diving. Of course you're dehydrated.
Yes.
When I'm diving,
Yes.
I guzzle water like you would not believe.
So I wonder why that is. You get really
Well,
dehydrated.
several different things. I mean, you're out in the sun a lot, right? Because
Right.
you're out on a boat. Well, most diving, or on a shore, whatever.
Mhm.
So you don't really have a lot of cover when you're diving. But also when you're underwater, the salt in the seawater will suck a lot of the moisture out of you.
Mm-hmm. This is true. This is the case. Okay. Hopefully I'm not going to get attacked. We're going to see if we can get something. Nope, gonna get attacked. Okay, we're running.
Acquired.
Go away. I don't want to be friends. Liz is like, what are you talking about?
I'm trying to figure out. I saw a shadow come across you, but
Yeah. Okay, here. I will show you what will happen.
oh, I see things.
Since I got my knife. I got my knife. And then suddenly it got very dark. Ooh, shoot.
Very dark. Some bioluminescence going on there.
Yeah, there's actually some excellent bioluminescence in this game. So you see this fun guy? Friend?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm actually doing right now, besides every other minute feeding myself and trying not to become massively dehydrated, is I'm looking for salvage from the ship that I arrived on this planet on, which blew the heck up.
Bad.
And so the pod I keep going back to is actually an escape pod. Ooh, this is interesting. Why are you just sort of floating?
It's the trap.
Yeah. In all good time, it's definitely, it's a trap. So they're making the rock float, I guess? Okay.
Oxygen.
That could be useful.
Could be useful for sure.
There's not much really of
No.
it's much more free diving than this.
Yeah. Although I think that there are later parts in the game where you can increase your ability to go deeper. And when you sort of forage around and get more salvage and recipes, then that actually helps you make different and more equipment. So that's one of the other reasons that I'm looking around for stuff. So that maybe we can improve our diving abilities as well as oxygen tanks so that I don't have to... I am okay with receiving advice because I know nothing. I do not pretend to know I know what I'm doing. I play video games once a month when I do these streams. Because when I initially started doing these, it was just me sort of sitting and drinking a cocktail, which, of course, I mean...
Highly intriguing.
highly intriguing and stuff. However, I thought it might be more interesting and fun. So they had something to watch. Although it definitely makes it more challenging when you are trying to...
The Talp has informed you that you can pluck those floaters off the rock and then they will sink. And then you can stick them onto other things, I assume, to make those things float.
I like it. Now I have to find where something went. Orient myself. Because I am terrible at directions, both in real life and in games.
So, I was just reading the title of your stream, Life in Space, Astrobiology. With me, space person.
Yes.
So, what does that mean? What were you thinking we were going to talk about?
Well, could mean lots of things. It can mean, you know, when there's lots of talk about, you know, if we wanted to colonize other planets, how would we do that? For concepts where I was thinking a little bit more because I have some friends who did some work looking at on the International Space Station. How are we going to grow food, right, in space, to supplement stuff? And there were some very interesting studies. They're actually going on right now on the plant biology side, using what is called, everyone's favorite, I'll say, model organism, pet organism plant is called Arabidopsis, which is also known as mouse-eared cress. It is a little tiny weed, but for a plant it has a small genome, so that makes it easy to work with. It also only has 2 copies of every chromosome, so it has a grand total of 10 chromosomes.
Okay.
Now, it still has more genes than humans do.
I take it plants are gene heavy?
Yes. Their genomes tend to be very large in general. So the largest genomes we know of belong to plants.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's it's a type of flower that was recently discovered that has, come here, that has the largest genome, which is about, part of me says 10 times bigger than the human genome, but I think it's actually larger than, no, it's 50 times bigger than the human genome. And it kind of has to do with, if you spend your entire life in one place, you have to have all of the things that you would possibly need
Right.
to survive.
Right.
It's kind of the idea. They also are more so gene duplication and genome duplication, plants have an easier time dealing with that than like mammals or humans do.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, like Down syndrome is caused by a duplication of one chromosome, and that causes a lot of different disabilities and defects and issues, versus plants can go through whole genome duplications and be completely fine. And in some cases, those genome duplications can result in a new species in one generation.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredibly fast.
Yeah. And so, because what will happen is now they can no longer, because they have a whole extra set basically, they can no longer breed with the parent that they came from, parent species. And that's actually what happened in bread wheat. So bread wheat has 6 copies of everything, and that was because one of the ancestors went through a genome duplication, and then that progeny, that duplicated progeny who now has 4 sets, hybridized with something else and to make 6.
Right. Interesting.
Yep.
Wow. We actually had some people discussing the concept of terraforming and colonizing other planets and what it was going to take. And I think one of the things that never really got mentioned in those panels, I was not on one of them, but what never really got mentioned is that you really need a magnetic field to be able to deflect charged particles from the central star. You're obviously going to be on a planet around a star.
Yeah.
And because you need that energy source. So without a magnetic field to deflect the nasty charged particles coming both from the star and from deep space, you're going to have a tough time. And that causes, without that magnetic field, the charged particles come right in, and anything you have for an atmosphere quickly gets ionized off, and you lose your atmosphere really fast.
Yeah.
So.
And that was something. Like for example, I think the book The Martian does actually an excellent job on kind of like if someone was surviving, what would it take to try and basically make that work.
Well, I mean, it's one of the reasons that terraforming Mars is problematic. It does not have a magnetic field.
Nope.
That's a planet-sized problem to solve.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I say with our current tech, I know that we can generate magnetic fields, but not of that magnitude and not without an immense amount of power.
No, it would be very difficult.
Yeah, and even just getting things to grow, for example, is also an issue because some of the work that's going on the International Space Station using, Arabidopsis, which is, a tiny little weed, and it's got about a 4-month life cycle, and they're very small. I used to grow them in little yogurt cups, so you can get a bunch in a very small area. Each plant can have upwards of 30 to 100,000 seeds.
Wow.
Well, they're in the mustard family, and all mustard family plants make lots and lots of babies. Tiny, like grains of salt. So it makes them really easy to work with. But so they're just trying on the space station just to get these little guys to grow. And gravity is a problem. Plants have this. Oops. Plants have what's called gravitropism. And what that means is that when a seed germinates. Come here. Nope. Well, let me pick it up. When a seed germinates, the root, the proto-root, the embryonic root, which is called a radical, senses gravity and orients itself accordingly. And so if there is no gravity, it won't grow. It doesn't know what to do. Because you can have a seed right side up, upside down, and the seed will either, the root will grow up and then eventually just make itself longer, so that sorry, I need to drop this thing. Sorry, I cooked some food and then I didn't eat it earlier because I am tough. That's not terrifying. And so it will orient itself, grow longer, and then start growing down, or it will use its root to reorient itself. And even some grains, exchange powers. How do I do this?
Just real quick, I'm going to answer Joe's question in chat. Okay. Would a magnetic field be necessary only for deep space charged particles? Could a rogue planet that has some heat from tectonics maybe support life without one? Or would deep space particles alone wreak havoc? So if it's got heat, if it's got any kind of a molten core, it probably does have a magnetic field. It's that dynamo motion that causes the magnetic field. But if it were wandering through space without a magnetic field, whether it had a central star or not, yeah, the cosmic rays would do it in pretty quickly.
Oh, there's also a question here from John Lessing. I'd love to start that one.
No, I missed that one.
So asking, if ionized atmosphere is lost into space, what happens on our poles with polar lights? Are we losing parts of our atmosphere, and how noticeable would that loss be?
So we're always losing a little bit of our atmosphere. Atmospheres do that; they gradually dissipate. But thankfully, there are things on the Earth that are producing particles to help replace it. What you're seeing with northern lights is an effect of charged particles along a magnetic field traveling through materials that they can ionize, and then those ionized particles will just, when they get excited, they don't get ionized. When the electron drops back down to its normal state, it releases this light that you see as aurora, and that's why different elements produce different light. It is excited. It's not being kicked out of the atmosphere.
Do you have any other questions? Yay, it's dark. My favorite time of day.
What do the stars look like on your Subnautica world?
Ooh, that is a good question. Actually, we can find that out.
That's actually one of my, I don't video game very much, but one of the things that I do look at when I play a video game is what the sky looks like. And it was one of the reasons I liked EverQuest 2 so much. They actually paid a lot of attention to their sky.
Oh, I do have a glitch. So, everyone, please ignore the birds that are sitting on nothing. Not unless these are types of very fascinating hoverbirds. But we have two moons. So I talked about this the last time I played this game. This moon is so close that the tidal forces just have to be insane.
Yeah, if you can see it moving that fast, unless it's very large and let's see, unless it's very large and time has been sped up, maybe.
It was in front of the other smaller moon just a moment ago, so I'm assuming it's in a very tight orbit and not very large.
Maybe it just looks huge.
Maybe it's made of pumice. Maybe it's just not very dense.
Yeah, that was something else I thought. I didn't think of that. That might be it. It's just, she said it's made of pumice. See, now the birds fly. See, the thing is, now I can't figure out of these, because at first, the last time I saw these bird things, I thought that they were like floating manta rays. And then it's like, no, they're birds. But then it's the, where do they nest? Where do they nest? And now they sit on nothing again. See?
That's funny.
It's birds all the way up. So here's the stars.
There's a few. You've got some clouds too, so it's hard to see.
That's best. There's the gigantic moon.
That is so funny. They're just sitting there in the sky.
Yeah, no, this happened last time. I couldn't figure out what was going on, and then it was just like, oh, those are birds that are sitting above
Well,
me.
if they can sit in the sky, they can nest in the sky.
Yes, this is true. This is true. Maybe there's some. There's another one. Maybe there's some very sort of specialized ecosystem. Maybe they create their own magnetic field.
Oh, there you go.
That's it.
The bird magnetism.
Yes, it's bird magnetism. We'll grow plants on you.
Well, they're clearly arranged in a particular way. When you have order like that, it's evidence of a magnetic field.
This is true. Oh, now where'd they go? Nope, now they're all gone.
Bird particles.
Right. They just dispersed.
Yep.
We had them and now they're all gone.
They're virtual particles.
Yes, exactly. Well, quite literally.
Yes.
Oh, what did Possibility say? You're on an alien child styrofoam solar system project.
This is it's bird magnetism.
Two entire scientists. It's bird magnetism. Two entire scientists. There you go. You are correct. Yeah. That's true. That's true. You can quote that from now on. So you heard it here, folks. Oh gosh. Alright, let's see if I can get some more of this. Some more salvage. Some more salvage. How to make some of this new stuff. Oop. Maybe I can scan this. Nope. Fine. Fine, do that.
You have a good point though about the tides. There's like no motion from the waves even. You don't have surge or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Very calm planet for something with a massive moon just right above the surface.
Yeah, that was something you know, especially because of how shallow it is here. Like I could see it if we were deeper. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I have done no diving because I'm terrified of the ocean. However, I feel like there should be a lot more surge. But
if the entire planet, the ocean on the entire planet is the same depth, you'll be fine.
Okay.
Remember the surge is caused, yes, by tides, but also because that effect is being pushed from what is a very deep ocean up to a very shallow ocean near the edges. And that's why you get such significant, up and down motion.
No, that's a very good point. I'm spending all of my time just trying to keep to manage my husk.
Meat, it's the worst.
Right? Meat, it's the worst. GammaLiz 2020.
You gotta maintain it to keep the brain alive. The brain is the important part. The
Right?
meat's just
I
the
tell
rest.
people
Ugh.
this all the time, that my body is an incredibly inconvenient vehicle I use to just carry my mind around.
That's true.
So much maintenance. So much. Don't like it when I call it a husk. Let's see if we can explore some more. But yeah, they were doing some studies with trying to grow plants at the International Space Station, and so you can make, using the centrifugal force, make sort of an artificial...
I was gonna ask. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. How fast do you have to spin it for it to decide that there is in fact a down?
Yes.
And start growing?
Mm-hmm. And so...
Because rotation like that can cause problems if it's too much.
Yeah.
on a space mission in a space vehicle.
Yep. On a space mission and a person.
Well, just because it takes inertia, you have inertia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, in order to rotate something, you have to rotate something else the other direction.
Yeah.
So, spinning your tomato seeds or whatever they happen to be will require that something else has to, put some force in somewhere to offset it.
Yeah, it was a big deal. Gosh, it must have been last year. In my head, I'm like a few months back, but it actually had to have been last year, where a group did manage to germinate a little rice seedling in space, like in a satellite. It was basically under low gravity because there was still gravity from the satellite for the Earth. But
Hey,
then
John Lessing.
But then it died. So it didn't work that great.
Well,
Although
one step at a time.
Yep. So everyone was very excited. But there's actually these fun little, which because I'm on camera, there's these fun little wheels where they'll have the seeds on this sort of growth media, and they're just spinning, and so you see over time the little roots going out like hair, on the outsides as they're going around and around and around. Because that's the only way. Which it was basically repeating an experiment that we'd done on Earth when they were studying gravitropism, right, and figuring out, okay, how do plants figure out which way is down? Because there are even certain grains, I can't remember if wheat does this or some others, where they're kind of shaped with the hull, they're shaped like a little torpedo. And when they hit the ground, they will expand and orient themselves and almost wiggle and drill themselves down into the dirt.
Yeah.
So.
These tend to be the weeds that are the most prolific in my garden.
Yes.
Oh, God, they drive me nuts.
Yeah, those are called...
So I'm actually interrogating you more than anything else here. So out of curiosity, if you have this spinning device, I'm just imagining this cylinder that has dirt around the outside, and then seeds in the dirt, and it's rotating along its axis, and the roots are growing toward the outside. That means the plants are growing toward the inside. So is there a light source that sits on the inside along the axis of this cylindrical fantasy object that's in my head?
Okay. So most of the time, we haven't even gotten to the dirt part yet.
Well,
so
that makes it tough.
Yeah, so instead they use, actually what I use in tissue culture, which is called growth medium. It is basically...
That's not dirt?
It is not dirt.
That's what I think of as dirt.
Oh no, it is science, as Ethan just called, it is science jello. It is basically, you take pectin or agar, some sort of stiffening agent, right? Gelatin. And you add sugar, salt, and hormones. And yep. Because some of those, so you have to add all of the different trace elements that normally
Discovered.
whole fish. That isn't, you know. I know that was very, that was not most inspired.
It was, but it wasn't a half fish. It was a whole fish.
um. So now I forgot what I was talking about.
It's okay.
So
Pasta just told me. Pasta just mentioned Gamma says the word garden like generals say the word war zone. Let me explain something.
All right, here we go.
When I walked into this house with this yard, the entire it's a half-acre lot. The entire backyard was covered in English ivy, and what trees were there were covered in various and sundry vines, whether it was honeysuckle or the bane of my existence, morning glory. Oh my god, this stuff is like the most prolific thing, and it's impossible to kill. So I've spent the last 7 years slowly but surely pushing back the ivy, and I've essentially gotten rid of almost all of it. There's one little patch that I haven't yet cleared, and replacing it with, you know, normal garden plants, bushes, shrubs, flowers, trees, etc. In this time, I have yet to get rid of the stupid morning glory, because it does exactly what you said. It drills itself down into the dirt, and it creates this massive tuber that you can dig down and try to pull out, but you're never going to get all of it. It's not possible. So morning glory is my equivalent of your little grains that dig themselves in, because they do. It will burrow itself down.
Yep. The technical term for what people consider a weedy species, right? Or a need some more. Yes, weed is a plant where you don't want it. Where a human has decided that they don't want the plant there.
Right.
But
right.
The technical term is disturbance adapted.
Right.
Disturbance adapted species.
Yeah. So there's a lot of those in my yard as well. There's a particular kind. Oh man, there's a particular kind of weed that I'm working hard to get rid of.
Okay.
Where it grows these little seed pods. It flowers, lovely little white flowers, and it grows these little seed pods. And if you happen to brush against that plant, no matter how hard or gently, if you're just trying to pull it up, you know, ever so carefully, and you bump it just the slightest little bit, these seeds bounce out of this seed pod on springs. And I know they're on springs because I found the little plant springs. And they go everywhere. Only way to get rid of this weed is to pull it up before it makes seeds, and it's impossible. And it goes through multiple cycles of this per year, so I might as well give up. Yeah, my yard is a battleground.
I did love it. It's like, why does she sound like it's like general? It's like, because it is a war.
It is a war.
Right, a war.
So your space gel is who's so kind
Oh, yes. So my space gel mold, as Fu so kindly put it, yes, is that basically allows for you to grow plants in a sterile environment and without soil.
Okay.
But you have to provide all of the things that they would normally get from the fungi and bacteria that they would have symbiosis with or relationships with. And so there's like a whole very complicated science in plant cell biology and tissue culture of people studying how to do this, as well as regenerating plants without seeds, because most people have heard of, you can take a cutting like from a plant, and you could, in some plants you can take that cutting and you can grow a whole new plant from that. Well, if you add the right growth hormones at the right time, along with other nutrients. You can make any plant do this. And that is what we call tissue culture. And it's also how we do engineering, like plant genetic engineering, because you will transform cells. That's the term. Whoa, look at that guy. So cool.
What is he?
Oh, first I'm going to get some air, and then we'll go over. And then you regenerate those cells which have your, gene edit or your chain or your engineering ones. Give the big one kisses. Hi, buddy. So it almost looks.
Ooh, look at that. That.
What do you think? That's Earth-like equivalent. Just get a ride. Obviously a slow-moving animal since it's got coral growing on it.
Right.
But then again, almost a bit like a whale.
Yeah, a bit like a whale shark, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
Which are not slow-moving, by the way. They look it just because they're so big.
Yeah.
Pasta would like to give the big one kisses. It says he wants one of those and we should scan it.
Alright. I will scan it. Reef back. Nice. Have I learned all the things about it? There we go.
Actually, Ooze says whale sharks real big. Yeah. I actually work directly with a gentleman who developed an algorithm for identifying the location of star fields from pictures, so that you could figure out where the telescope was pointing at the time in case for some reason that information wasn't provided in the image. That exact same technology, that algorithm that he developed for that, is what they use to identify whale sharks, because each whale shark's spot pattern is unique. And so they can use this algorithm to figure out whether they've seen and cataloged a whale shark before. And I work with the guy that did it.
That is so fascinating. I love it. I don't get to do something near this cool.
Seek fluid intake.
Seek fluid. What?
It's a creature that we've known existed for a long time. And I think it was like 2 years ago was the first time they'd ever actually seen a whale shark poop.
Vital signs
And that made
stabilizing.
major science news because of the fact it's like, we know they had to, but we've never seen this actually occur.
They probably always did it at depth or something. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Or
You're a bunch of nerds when.
It's like, what's the biggest science news this week? We watched a large animal death.
Excellent. Oh, we never seen it before. You don't understand.
Oxygen.
There's a first time for everything.
I get this. No, don't worry. My win this week was that they managed to germinate these dirty field seeds and then not have any fungal contamination. That's all I've ever wanted. Small.
So
miracle.
you were saying you're trying to do this in a sterile environment.
Yes.
But plants don't grow in a sterile environment. Why would you? What is the need? Why is there a need to keep things sterile?
Well, so for one of the reasons, at least in tissue culture, that we need to keep things sterile is you will get, because of that sort of growth medium, you get a bunch of things you don't want growing from humans that will kill your plants. So you also have to make sure that they're very healthy, and so usually there is a grand war going on outside
Mm-hmm.
with various plants and other microorganisms, and that the plants will sort of defend themselves against certain pathogens, and then they make relationships with other ones for symbiosis. Although there is, sorry, I'm looking at it. There is some instances where it's kind of a tenuous relationship, where you could switch from being a symbiote to a parasite. You know, it's kind of a razor's edge a little bit. So both the plant and the bacteria or the fungus try to get the most out of the partner with having to give the least up, generally speaking. And it's not really necessarily clear, you know, why that is. But when we're in the lab, what can happen is you can bring them in from the field and say you want to do some particular, like, genetic manipulation or particular growth or whatever. You need to make sure that you're only getting plant DNA and not plant DNA and fungus DNA and half a dozen other bacterial species.
Right.
And so that's one of the reasons they have to be grown sterilely, which also makes it a pain in the butt. But when I was talking about the fungus issue, is that fungus that grow on the science jello, as so aptly put it, because it is made of sugar, salts, and other hormones, and it's generally in a humid environment because plants like humidity, fungus also love all of that. And they will kill the crap out of my plants.
Right.
Because they grow faster. So that is always a good fun time.
I see. So it has to be very, very, very controlled.
Yes.
Well, and in a space environment, it also has to be extremely controlled, and that's why that type of growth is preferred, because you don't necessarily know what's in soil. So in order to bring it aboard a spacecraft, soil's also heavy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, launching anything that's heavy is expensive.
Versus with your growth medium, you can ship it as powder and
Vital
hydrate
signs
once
stabilizing.
it's in orbit.
Yeah.
So water's also heavy, but yeah, fair enough.
True, but you're using water for other things.
True.
So you already had the water, but yeah, you also, it's about keeping it sterile because you don't know what's necessarily in the soil, and so it would require sterilizing the soil, which defeats most of the
Defeats the purpose,
of the soil.
right? Yep. Yeah,
It's
fair
the
enough.
little robot Wally that screams about the foreign contaminant and is constantly scrubbing the floor. It's that.
That is, by the way, my favorite of the little robots in Wall-E.
I love him so much. But yeah, unfortunately, the difference between soil and dirt is that soil, there's things that are alive in there. Dirt, there's nothing alive in there anymore. You still have your trace elements, but then you don't have any of the other things that are required to keep things going.
Right.
Yes, because most plants, to get their nitrogen, here, turn off my light. Most plants, to get their nitrogen, make symbiotic relationships with fungus, but then there's a good portion that also make it with bacteria. But if we still, microbial ecology is becoming a really important field of study right now, because there's still a lot about those dynamics that we don't understand. Because even if you try to replicate them in a lab with just a few species, they get unbalanced really quickly. Where one particular species of any of those partners will abuse the relationship and will eat up all of the nutrients and kills everything else. So either by just out competing them, or a variety of different.
Oxygen.
Yes, I understand. Thank you. Yes. Although I have... Wait a second. Okay, I already have a standard O2 tank and a second one. I wanted to get the advanced one, but I need a new glass. How do I do that again?
Seems like it would be a great way to spend a lot of time.
Making
It
glasses.
seems like it would be a great game to just waste a lot of time on. Of course, this is kind of my thought about most games where you have to like go and make things.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually crafting was actually my favorite part of EverQuest when I was playing it, but then I realized just how much time I was spending
Right.
sitting there punching a button, and I'm like, I can't do this with my life.
No, anytime I usually play games, they're usually things like this because I'm busy enough and have enough tension in my life. I don't want to have to think too hard.
Right.
So it's kind of nice to be like, I'm just farming and crafting, and you know, if I get a little something done, great. If I don't, great. But then, if I don't come back to it for like a couple months, it's fine. Doesn't really matter.
No big deal.
Mm-hmm. But no, you're absolutely right. You can spend a lot of time. But it's one of the reasons I like sewing, that I've had to.
Yeah.
That's what I used to do.
I quilt. Yeah, that's another big time consumer.
Mm-hmm. But
But at least at the end of it, you have a thing that you can say, I made this.
right. Yeah, you can
It feels
justify,
really good.
justify sitting there.
And then you ship it off to somebody and give it away, because
Yep,
you know,
that's
how many
exactly what
blankets
I
does
do.
one person need?
That's exactly what I do. I do needlepoint cross stitch, and I keep very few of the things I make.
Yeah, I used to, but I decided I liked quilting better. I like anything that feels like it's a jigsaw puzzle out of material. They're both of those are kind of jigsaw puzzles.
Right.
So I'm going to need to go in not too long, but are there any space questions that you wanted to ask me about?
Me specifically, or friends?
Well, yes and yes.
Yes, yes, yes. Why not both? I wanted to know, like, your perspective. When we were talking about like how there has to be sort of water, right? And you were talking about also like there needs to be a magnetic field, right? Is almost more important, so that you don't lose, you know, your atmosphere and everything else. I've seen a lot of thoughts about, you know, if there were life in if there was life in our solar system or nearby, it would be on like one of Jupiter's frozen moons or something like that, like Europa.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you'd ever talked to anybody about that or considered.
Well, the reason why there's actually really good justification for that.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why that's the most likely place is, one, Jupiter has a very big, strong magnetic field and can protect those moons from the nasty stuff coming from outside the solar system and from the sun.
Mm-hmm.
But two, Jupiter is a big planet and produces tidal stresses on its moons, which means that they are not, like Mars is, cold and dead. They have heating. It's heating caused by tidal stresses rather than heating caused by the sun. They also have heating caused by the sun, but they actually have internal heating produced by this gravitational interaction with Jupiter. And so anytime you want to have life, you need to have some source of energy. And if you have heating from the inside caused by this gravitational interaction, you can have things like vents, volcanic vents or whatever, that produce, so one of the possibilities is Europa. That's the world that's covered in an ocean and then has an ice crust. You know, if you have some sort of a volcanic vent at the bottom of that, we know that life exists on Earth at the bottom of the ocean near volcanic vents. There's no reason to think it couldn't be there as well. But the nice thing there is you have this additional energy source that's not just the sun.
Mhm.
That helps tremendously for maintaining some sort of life.
And I hadn't thought about that. That's really fascinating.
Yeah, that's really one of the reasons that those big moons are considered, likely. Probably not the one that's farthest out, but the closer moons have a much better chance.
Because they would also have, they would have stronger tidal forces.
They would have stronger tidal forces, and they'd have more shielding by the magnetic field.
Ah,
Both of those things.
Mhm.
And then Europa has the benefit of also having water. Io's probably not a good choice unless sulfur is a good thing for life.
Mhm.
Io has a lot. It gets really intense tidal stresses, and so that produces volcanoes, which do bad things.
It
doesn't-
bad things.
Well, it spreads sulfur. It spews into the atmosphere. It actually produces. There's a ring of material that comes off of Io around Jupiter. You're not going to really get much of an atmosphere there. But the other thing is that you're looking at, if you don't have an atmosphere, where can you keep life? And most of those places are, if you can find a way to have liquid water somewhere, or a liquid, doesn't have to be water.
30 seconds.
You can find a way to have a liquid, even if you don't have a gaseous atmosphere. Uh-oh, you got whacked. You may be able to have a place where life can hang out. Solids, if all you've got is
All you got is what? Oh. We may have lost Liz. Oh no. We'll go back to the pod and see if I can get Liz back. Oops. Nope, I cannot
I'm
hear you.
here.
Oh,
Do
there
you
you
hear
are.
me?
Sorry.
Where did I drop off?
I don't know. Something about you were saying if there's liquid.
Yeah, if there's some sort of a liquid, then, and it's not, like acid,
If it's
you
not,
probably have a decent.
well, stop being pedantic. Technically, it is not an acid. No. Mildly acidic in some instances.
Anything non-toxic.
Yes, non-toxic to life. Although, of course, then we have to be relative. What is life?
Yeah, right. Well, and there are things, I can imagine that there would be life forms that could conceivably be fine with things that are toxic to life that we have on Earth.
Absolutely. Well, even when we were
So-
talking about the volcanic vents, there are things that live down there that certainly are in an area which is not friendly
Yeah.
to life and other
But the hard part for life is if you don't have anything other than just vacuum and rock.
Mm.
If you don't have anything, but yeah, I don't even know how you do that.
Yeah, how would you do it? How do? I get to use a first aid kit, guys. Yes.
You got hurt.
I
So,
did.
you do have a question for Cruz.
I do.
Would life be considered bacteria? What is considered the lowest level of what is the bar to get over to be life?
So generally speaking, it would be bacteria. You are correct. However, there's an argument in biology, and it's been an argument for a very long time, on if viruses are
Oh.
alive.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because the argument is that they are very simple organisms. I'm just kind of use that loosely. And they require another organism to be able to reproduce. And they would be, another term for them would be an obligate parasite. Now, the argument is like, well, they're two cell, like they have to be like a bacteria can maintain its own food, can do its own things, can reproduce on its own, right? Even if it's by binary fission, where it's the you grow, you get bigger, and you can find your own food and produce your own things, and that so on and so forth. And viruses have to have a host. Well, there are plenty of multicellular organisms as well, and bacteria, which also require a host, and they're considered alive.
Right. So you don't want to be prejudiced against single-celled organisms.
Right, right. And
But are they single-cell? See, this is where the problem is.
right.
A virus doesn't have a cell.
Mm-mm.
It's a no.
Well, and also depends on the virus. There are some which are like the flu virus, or a coronavirus that has a lipid membrane around a protein capsid, right? And
Right.
if we consider a cell has to have a lipid membrane, you could also say, well, it has to have organelles, which are other subcompartments, and that is what you have to be if you are a eukaryote. Well, bacteria don't have subcompartments within their cells. They have areas, right, where you'll find like all the protein making happens over here, right, and but it's just one big room basically, and they have lipid membranes. And it also depends on the type of bacteria you are, if you're gram-negative or gram-positive, which is a whole other thing that we can get into if people really want to know. And why do you keep hanging around my boat? I don't like you. No! Please don't eat me.
You're apparently delicious.
Apparently, yes. You gotta taste them now. Wants me all the time. Everybody wants me. So because of that, let's see. Fiber mesh. Ooh, radiation suit. I might have this now. Oh boy, oh boy. So yeah, there has been quite a bit of arguing within the field for a long time, because most virologists are on team they're alive, right? And anybody who works on, we'll call macrobiology, larger organisms, are like, no, they're not. So generally speaking, I know that was a very, very, very long explanation, ooze, but it usually would be bacteria and prokaryote. So bacteria are archaea, which are a single-celled organism. They have a lipid membrane. They have their own genome. They make their own things. They live. They can live independently. But there are some exceptions. There are plenty of obligate pathogens or obligate parasites that require hosts to live, and that's where this division gets squicky, you know. Because it was believed a few years back they had found some meteors in the Arctic that were originally thought to have come from Mars.
Yep, the Antarctic actually, yeah.
The Antarctic,
they picked up a few.
Thank you.
That's all right.
And they had found bacteria on them, and it thought that was, or evidence of bacteria at some point, and thought that was evidence of there having been life on Mars. But
it was deep inside.
Right. But then there's some who think that maybe it was just a contaminant from when they were investigating it.
Hard to know.
Yeah. It's really hard to know. So, because I saw
Occam's razor.
Yeah, exactly. Because it is even in the lab I work in, it is very difficult to keep. There's a difference between a sterile environment and a clean environment. Because clean is like you have no dust, you have no excess particles anywhere. You're in like a bunny suit.
Yeah, clean rooms is what we use those for putting together spacecraft because you have to be actually clean.
Right, right. Versus, it's like I work in a sterile environment, but I don't have to be clean necessarily, but I have to work in a special hood and do, certain things to make sure that no living organism goes and kills all the things that I want to live.
Right.
which is the usual problem. Although we are looking at getting a clean room installed or put together, and I'm excited for that because we're doing more of our own genetic sequencing.
Oh, cool. Yeah, for there you definitely need to have everything clean.
Yep.
You don't want cross contamination because then it won't be valid.
Nope. And that has been a little bit of the issue, even with everyone being so extremely super careful. It is very difficult to not have some cross contamination between where we're building certain genetic elements in one area of the lab and then sequencing, samples that are coming from all over the place. And so commonly when you do genetic sequencing, example, if I sequenced a plant genome, I will have all of those sequences and I will have a data file of the entire human genome. And I will search for human genome sequences and scrub those out of my data. Because there's gonna be some.
Wow.
No matter what you do. And that actually occurred of, you will also usually scrub out the genomic sequences of any other organism you work in the lab. So if you work with E. coli or you work with yeast or something else, there's usually some contamination, even if you've tried very, very hard. And so you scrub those sequences out to then, from your data, to then make sure that you've got a nice, clean set. And it actually did occur that a paper had come out that had found that many crop species had been. So I work with a bacteria called Agrobacterium, which genetically engineers its host, and that's how we deliver gene editing reagents. Found that Agrobacterium had genetically engineered the ancestors of many of our crop species, because what was happening is they were scrubbing out the same contaminating sequence over and over.
Uh-huh.
And we're like, this is too big, because usually it's random, right? And it's small bits, right? And it was the same, conserved sequence, and it was of whole genes. So a gene is approximately about 1 kb, 1,000 base pairs long-ish. And they were scrubbing out the same 20 kb region over and over and over.
Oh, wow.
They're like, wait.
And they're like, maybe this actually was supposed to be there.
Yeah, and so they found it was actually, I know some of the researchers who were working on it because they were sequencing sweet potato and looking at sweet potato relatives and other cultivars and stuff. So at first they thought it was a mistake, so they sequenced it again. Then they started sequencing some other varieties. They ended up sequencing 293 different cultivars, and it's in every single one.
Wow. So sweet potatoes were created by this bacterium.
Yeah, so every sweet potato ever is technically a GMO.
Interesting.
That happened in nature. It happens all the time, actually. Even now, when people started looking for it, they found, it's all over the place.
Cool. All right, and on that note, I'm going to have to run. I'm so sorry.
Nope, not a problem at all. Thank you for coming. This has been lots of fun.
If anyone's looking to seek you out, Liz, where should they look for you?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I am really not the most social butterfly. I do have a Twitter account, but it's usually just for, my politics. You probably don't want to follow that. Maybe you do, I don't know. But if you're interested in seeing what kind of things I do in space, the best thing to do is to check out the NASA Universe account, because they talk about a lot of the types of research that some of it that I'm actually doing, and some of it that I'm related to because of my work on the missions that I work on. And pasta has just stuck in my personal Grover board. Yep. But check out NASA Universe. It's great.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
I will definitely, and if anybody is, interested, go definitely check that out. So I know you were doing the con. Is that still going on, or is that done today?
It's finishing up today. Tonight is the end of it. They're doing closing ceremonies in a little bit.
Okay.
But, I mean, there's stuff going on all the time now. People are coming to the understanding that we're going to be needing to be virtual for a while yet. So I think that we're going to see more of these kinds of virtual conventions happening.
Yep. And actually, I will be attending one myself for the American Society of Plant Biologists national one. It's going all virtual over at the end of July. Of course, the week is going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating. But I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, I'm going to run.
All right.
Have fun exploring your water world there, and I hope you manage to get away from that nasty gar that keeps coming after you.
It does look like a gar, doesn't it?
It does.
Like an alligator gar. Yep. Thank you so much.
We'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. I think then I'm just going to call it for tonight. So thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for your questions, and I look forward to seeing you all next month. Bye.